Rockhoof
There was
was
one part in this episode I liked.
All right, so
What?
hello everyone. We are live. We just witnessed a Rockhoof and a hard place. I have a lot of thoughts on this one, but anybody else want to start? Because I'm just gonna get into a rant probably.
This is pretty much a
yeah.
meh episode.
I mean, I didn't think it was that bad. Like, yeah, it was crap.
Let's
but...
hear some positives and end on a horrible negative.
All right, I can give you my positive. I can give you my positive.
All right.
My positive is that I like how through the episode, like he's introduced to the students, and then the students think he's weird. But then when when he's actually substituting for the class, they all get really interested in his stories. I don't know if that's because they wanted to get out of work or they actually cared for him. But I also liked at the end how Yono was the one to just, yeah, it was really shoehorned, but she basically got the entire school to stand up for Rockhoof. And I could sort of understand because there are students that are like that today that actually do that for their teachers if they're about to get expelled or something.
Yeah.
They actually stand up
like
for them.
Fired.
So
yeah.
I can understand sort of. Like, that's the only part I liked was the part with the students.
Yeah.
Like they all just came together at the end just to like help their teacher, which I can respect that.
Well,
One thing
they didn't. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like it's weird because they didn't really know him. He was just a substitute or a new teacher for like one day,
know,
and all of
but
a
he
sudden
had-
they fall
I
in
know,
love with
but-
him.
No, but they knew what he did. Like they knew he was like from another time. Like
course,
they knew
yeah,
obviously that.
Yeah, he destroys
be
the
honest,
classroom, so that makes him stand out to them as like an interesting teacher. They don't actually know him
That
enough
right
to
there,
care
I
about
thought-
him.
that I thought was just dumb, but I felt like they only did that just so, I don't know, he could make it more entertaining for the students,
Yeah.
just to show what it was actually like.
It just
And
feels like.
I didn't kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't think it was that bad. Like I thought it was kind of cool because I could see it from a student's perspective on why they actually liked him.
Because
to
he
be
was
honest, if
different
Albert,
and crazy. Yeah, I don't know.
Like, to be honest, if, like, I don't know, like, a person from our time, like Martin Luther King, just randomly came back and started teaching my history class, I'd be like, dude,
okay.
let's hear your freaking stories.
Yeah, that's a little bit different. That would be cool, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not trying to get at the fact that I hate this episode because I don't. It just feels like a lot of weird, odd decisions in this one.
One thing oh, sorry. I was gonna say one thing I agree with you, Little Shy, is Twilight and Applejack. Just
no one agrees with me.
The part where you said Twilight and Applejack, their communication was kind of off.
Well, that was actually Tootsie's point in the call during the episode. During the fire scene, which I have lots of notes about, the random fire.
Annoying.
Yeah, the fire scene.
Alright.
Twilight and Applejack could have just said, no, stop, it's just the dragons. But no, it's more like the
They
Willy
just-
Wonka.
no,
No,
they-
stop,
they-
come back.
They waited until he was, like, already in the school before saying, wait, come back.
Yeah.
But they never, no one
one
really says that. Like, if there's a fire going on, they just say, no, don't worry, it's just this. No one
Yeah.
ever says, like, no, wait, come back.
It's
I
just
like-
such a horrible
like-
setup because right from the
and I like-
beginning, you know what's going on, but it just drags out.
And I like how they waited before he caused, like, actual damage to the school before telling him.
Yeah, he broke the wall. He caused some
and
damage.
he broke the fountain. He
And
broke the fountain.
Yeah, and he drenched the place in water. So yeah, like I don't know. So my notes there is just it's a random fire that's obviously not a threat to the audience, but he has to believe it's a threat because he has to cause some trouble. And
the fire makes
it's an understandable mistake. You see a fire, you want to put it out, but Applejack and Twilight don't even try to stop him, and it's obvious setup is just annoying. I don't know.
And it also I know it only showed up for like a few seconds, but it also annoyed me just because the drag, like, okay, Spike and Smolder have the fire breathing contest. Why would they be allowed to do that in school?
Okay, and I want to clarify before we get criticized for being critical of such a small point in the episode. The episode's all about how he's feeling unwanted. And he has to find a job, and then we have the resolution, which we'll get to in a moment. But this scene kind of establishes the clumsy unwantedness and how he doesn't fit in. So scenes like this are important, and when they kind of don't even work at all, then his arc in the episode doesn't work. I feel like there's a lot of little details that just don't make any sense in this one. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But the thing about the fire breathing scene, it's like the entire school is fireproof. Okay.
Not that one room.
Well, not really. No, they have like drapes and stuff. I don't know. We don't need to fixate on the fire.
Yeah, but one thing I want to bring up is why I understand why they would show the other pillars on what they were doing with their lives now that they're in modern time.
Yep.
But I still find it odd on how no one in Equestria thought to like hunt one of them down, knowing that they're from an ancient time who knows a lot about their history, to actually like give him a job, but instead have him search around like it's a teenager that needs to get a job.
Yeah, they could be celebrities, like Stygian, for example, wrote the book and all, right? They could all be like famous in that way.
In Star Swirl, he was legendary. I mean, my God,
he had conventions, right? He was famous.
Yeah, he was very famous.
He was like he was like the teacher of the princess.
You might say he was a famous horse.
No, but what was it? Crap.
So
I
haven't
really care. Oh, you got it.
I have a positive written down that we see more of the pillars at all, and that's nice. But then next to that, I have a major negative, which is probably it's like a detail that's probably one of the biggest problems I have with the episode. And it's the fact that we see the pillars after all this time. You would think that the story of all of them being from 1,000 years ago, trying to fit in modern society, is an interesting one, and we see them all fitting in just fine. And actually, what I write down? I gotta find my notes. Darn it.
That pun, by the way.
This is a fish out of water story.
Oh yeah, Fluttershy says none of the other pillars have trouble fitting into the modern world. And that's where it snapped, like, oh, so it's just Rockhoof, not for any particular reason, but just because episode, you know, like, we just...
it's just for plot. It's just a plot.
I would love to see all the pillars trying to fit into the modern world, but no, they have no problems at all. It's just Rockhoof, because Rockhoof is a cowardly weakling. Like, really?
Rockhoof smash.
Yeah.
Star Swirl.
To be honest, I thought Rockhoof would have fit in as like also part of the Royal Guards because he's the strongest one.
Well, he's too clumsy. He tried that with the Navy.
He was able to toss an Ursa Major all the way up into the stars.
Okay.
That wasn't true because he said, and she's been a constellation ever since. No, we saw her in season 1.
That's what I've been told.
Yeah, so that was just a story.
That's what
I like where wrote down. Looks like Trixie isn't the only one that said that she defeated an Ursa Major.
And that's a positive I have, is like a callback to Trixie's bragging. But then it gets confusing when he says that Ursa Major's been a constellation ever since, because we know it hasn't. So I guess that just means it was a tall tale, like he said. So I don't know. That's a little confusing, but I guess that's a positive.
I guess if you throw someone into the sky long enough, they turn into a constellation.
Yeah, it might be a magical creature. I mean, and no, I don't know.
One thing I thought was really dumb is... This brings up, and I hate the movie even more, because we get to them on the Royal Navy. One ship, and later in the episode, what was her name? I don't know, Princess Skystar says that he sunk the entire Navy. One boat, the entire Navy.
It's not Princess Skystar.
Also, I like how they panicked in fog when Real Navy, they never have a problem with this, and I don't think they would take orders from just a random newcomer who just pops up.
Think about it. These guys haven't been on land for a long time. They've been under,
so that's another question is why would they need a navy at all? And it's funny in the episode.
Applejack already brought that up.
Yeah, they bring that up. They bring that up, and Twilight says maybe they just like cruises, and they just leave it at that. Like there's no explanation. Even just bringing up a problem in the episode doesn't fix
solve
it.
Your problem.
That was really weird.
Excellent at Cinemersons.
Yeah, she would be. Yeah, that's a good point.
that's the thing. Applejack is the only one that would question these problems, and there's never usually a good answer to them.
Yeah, the episode questions some of its own problems and has no answer to it.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. All right,
Also,
so we are starting to run out of time. Any last remarks? Then I'm going to bring up one big discussion topic, and then we'll jump into videos.
He could have been a construction worker. That's the thing.
Yeah.
People without any job skills, who just like big, strong men, or women, can just use their muscle and everything. And I don't know why they even didn't think of it.
I guess the point they were going for is that he's too clumsy for that. I don't know.
I think the episode could have improved on if, how about, I don't know, during the Ancient Relics part in his village, he could have found, like, stuff. And yeah, that's what I thought they were going to do. He finds stuff in the village, and he's able to give a good description on them. And then at the end of the episode, like, they could still have the part of him not fitting in, but at the end of the episode, it could have had him go back to the village because he knows so much about it. And it would be best if they actually threw him in a museum, not as a statue, but actually as a tour guide or something, because he knows so much about everything.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah.
That would have been a way better, more interesting episode.
I would have suggested he would stay at Yakistan. You know, if Yona admires him because...
Yeah, Yona and him are just the same characters. There's no difference.
Well, imagine what it would be like if Rockhoof was with the Yaks.
I'm just saying, there's like... No, it just seems... Yona and what's-his-name, I thought that little relationship was just... Okay. So I don't really care for the pillars at all. They're just boring. They're just lore characters to me. They're not even in the show for actual purpose, just to sprout lore.
All right, so I suppose we'll jump into one last discussion and then ratings. How do we feel about his decision here. So the story is basically he feels unwanted. He can't find a job that fits for him. And I have something to say about that. I'll probably say in my review. But then also the conclusion is that he wants to die, basically. And
why?
Actually, students appeared.
the TVY version of suicide, basically. He wants to turn into a stone sleep for the rest of his life. He doesn't even talk about waking
Basically
up someday,
suicide.
because Tootsie mentioned in our call earlier before the review that, you know, he's going to be even worse in the distant future if he goes to sleep again, right? So no, the point
Yeah,
isn't to go
someone
to
wakes him up again.
His idea isn't to go to sleep and wake up in the future. His idea is just to never wake up. That's suicide, right?
This is disturbing. Seriously,
Isn't it?
it's very disturbing.
It's very
Gotta
disturbing.
have that climax somehow.
And it adds a lot to his
Also,
character.
Actually, wait.
What?
I can contradict that argument
Okay.
because in the episode, Twilight said
Yes, no.
it'll only
Yes,
be for a
Twilight.
little bit.
Yeah, that's Twilight's plan. That's not Rockhoof's plan. Twilight doesn't want to kill him, obviously. She wants to wake him up when they figure something out. He
But
doesn't.
He just wants to kill himself.
Yeah, and that's like, whoa, really?
That's pony slaughter. Come on.
Also, one last thing I want to bring up, and I
Uh-huh.
won't even mention it in the review. It felt so out of place when Rockhoof was just yelling at Twilight because she took him out of limbo.
Yeah, well, that I can understand that as just like an outburst, like, oh, I didn't ask to be born, sort of thing. Yeah, so this episode ruins Rockhoof for me. He feels like a weak little coward that doesn't think things through. And the worst part, and I was gonna save this for my review, but I'll mention it now. The whole episode is about him trying different things, right? But he doesn't stick with anything. One little mistake, and
No.
I guess this job's not for me. He doesn't stick with
Yep.
anything. And not just Rockhoof, but Twilight goes
It's
along
like-
with that too.
It's like the show does. This episode, that if you make a mistake the first time, then you can't do it again. That's like one of the worst things to ever learn.
Yeah, what about Derpy?
show
Derpy is the inspiration because she's still a mailmare, even after all these crashes and mistakes and losing
And
mail.
he tried being a mailmare.
Yeah, he tried that too.
being a mailmare.
The show knows about how to. The show has good ideas, but has no idea how to put them out there.
Yeah, I really
Put 'em
don't.
out there
This
pretty
is just a weird episode. All right, I'll talk more in my review. So who? All right, should we just jump into individual ratings and reviews? We're running out of time here.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
Drummer Shy, you want to start us off? We'll do we'll do 2.5 minutes each, I suppose.
2.5 minutes. Okay. So
Up to.
as you stated, this episode was weird, and I cannot believe it actually mentioned killing Rockhoof. Why would you do that? Anyway, you know, seeing, you know, Miss Main and the Egyptian pony and the beekeeper pony was cool. Shout out to Ellie Ray. She's awesome. I thought this episode was in the middle. It had its best moments, and then it just had its very why did you do this moment, and why was this even a thing moment. It was an okay episode. This would be an episode I would watch over if I have free time, but mentioning suicide in My Little Pony as like a hint is kind of a bad move on the writer's perspective. So I'm gonna give this episode a 6 out of 10.
All right, that's 6 from Drummer Shy. Hojo, what did you think?
Well, honestly, just starting off from the beginning, they don't have much for diversity on the staff in the first place. Not to mention they have a spot that needs to be filled that they're not really taking care of in the school for some reason. The fire breathing competition, what if someone just walking by saw that? Everyone would run in and try to do exactly what Rockhoof did in his defense. Finding a job without any qualifications, that's a big thing in any little line of work, really. And hey, look, the movie existed. Honestly, of all the flaws, I did like the episode, but it could really use some work. But so I'll get a 6.5 out of 10.
All right, 6.5 from Hojo. Who's next? Jessica, what did you think?
Honestly, I thought this was pretty meh episode. When I first saw it, I thought it was just, it was an episode that happened. It didn't have a lot of things. Didn't really feel like it was something I would remember. Watching it again, it's kind of the same thing. Just doesn't feel like an episode I want to remember because it's just boring, I guess. Rockhoof is like one of the least interesting pillars in my opinion. So seeing an episode that's based around him just feels a little off, I guess. One positive is that it's nice to see the pillars again, to see how they maintain society. Like Sonambula does yoga, and Miss Main works for like the Crystal Empire with the garden and stuff. I thought that was amazing. But again, like I mentioned before, like one of the biggest problems is that this episode tries to explain that if you make a mistake the first time, you're done. Like that's it. And I don't like that. It's nice to make mistakes because you learn from those mistakes and you get better. That's what you're supposed to do in life. But no, this episode's like if you make a mistake, you're done. And that's just I hate that. But that's one of the biggest negatives I have with this episode. The rest of the episode is just a meh. Also, also Yona is adorable in this episode, obviously.
Boring.
So I guess I would give this episode like a 6 out of 10.
All right, another 6 from Jessica. I'm next, but
I
I'll wrap
love
things
so
up.
good
So,
six.
what? You're next, Tootsie.
Eh.
Are you there? You're
Okay.
playing RuneScape, aren't you?
I don't think so. But I don't know. I pretty much complained all I wanted about the episode, other than I don't know. I felt like the episode would have been way better if they went with my little idea.
Of course, that's
because
what a brony would say.
No, it kind of it more fixes the problem. Like I don't really care for the idea of him being turned into stone. I'm just like, okay, you gonna do suicide? Go ahead, I guess. Like I don't know what to really say about that part, other than what? Like I don't really care for the pillars. Like I just see them as lore characters. Like they only appear just to talk about I don't know the past or to explain lore of the show. Because we haven't seen them since that finale. So I don't really care or really get attached to them. So I don't really care about Rockhoof, or I don't really care what all the pillars are doing. They're just boring to me. And I don't know, like the only good part I like about the episode was I liked through the entire episode the kids that really liked him. Like they first thought he was weird, but then they really enjoyed his stories, which I thought they were going to make him a history teacher. But no, that's not what I thought at all. Or that's not what they did at all. But I like how through the episode it shows the students saying, "Oh, I like Rockhopper. He's so cool." Blah blah blah.
You said Rockhopper again.
My bad. Sorry, clipping it. But I like how the end of the episode, all the students. It's very unrealistic, but I don't know. But all the students just came together to just, I guess, save Rockhoof. And I thought that was kind of cute because real life students do that for a teacher they like. But I don't know. This whole episode just felt not boring, but also not interesting or fun, but just, I don't know, there. So I'd probably just give it a 5 out of 10.
All right.
The only 5 is just, I like how the students all came together. That was it.
All right. 5 out of 10 from Tootsie. Suppose it's my turn. Oh man, I don't know where to start with this one. It's kind of a weird one. This episode stands out to me out of the entire show. All right, I'll start somewhere else. I suppose if I was a big fan of Rockhoof, I would have really disliked this episode because I feel like it kind of ruined his character and made him out to be some weakling coward that like doesn't want to stick with things that he tries, and you know, if things don't work out, I'll just kill me. You know, like it's like, really, you're not even gonna try, dude. Just stick with a job and you'll learn it eventually, and then you know that's how you learn and grow. That's how you do a job, is you stick with it and you eventually learn how to do it and you perfect it. But no, just try something, do a mistake, try something else. He feels like, Fluttershy's brother or whatever, like, right? Like, that's not the sort of character you want Rockhoof to be, right? So, I guess if I was a big fan of Rockhoof, I would have hated this episode, but since I'm kind of just lukewarm on the pillars, I kind of like them, but I'm not a giant fan. I'm mostly happy to see the other pillars, actually, on the other jobs and what they were up to. The episode did have a few little jokes here and there about, like, the sweat lodge breaking and, what's his name? Cranky Doodle's embarrassing rash. You know, silly little jokes like that are always fun. But yeah, the entire premise, the story being told here, I just thought was really kind of terrible. The way he doesn't stick with jobs, the way him feeling unwanted is so contrived and forced. Like the fire, for example, they could have just said, no, don't, the fire's okay. Or he could have, I don't know, it was obvious to the audience that the fire wasn't a big deal, and yet he was the only character not in on it or whatever. So that felt forced and annoying. And then, of course, him finding a job was forced and annoying. And the resolution, what even was the resolution here? It's just the students came up and wanted to hear a story, right? But even after that, he still wanted to be turned to stone. It wasn't until Twilight said, hey, you could just tell stories for the rest of your life. And he was like, oh, okay. Like, it just kind of flip-flopped, you know?
He wanted to kill himself.
He had such a drastic decision there with, I don't want to call it suicide or killing himself, but that's kind of what it is. That was his decision, is to go to sleep for the rest of his life. Or actually, forever. Not just the rest of his life, but yeah, so weird episode. The best way I can describe this is that it felt very unpony. It wasn't very lighthearted. It's kind of a dark story that didn't have a satisfying resolution. You just see this pony that's desperate enough to turn himself to stone forever, and it doesn't have a satisfying conclusion to that. It doesn't like bring you up in the end the way a depressing story should like this. So yeah, very weird episode. I'm still like, I didn't hate it. I'm not having a knee-jerk reaction to it. I just like, I'm not even sure what I just watched. It was weird. Anyway, I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna give this one a 4.5 out of 10. It's a little bit low.
Always gotta go low.
Yeah. All right, and again, these are all like first impression ratings. Maybe it'll improve over time. I don't know. This is an episode I want to rewatch because I want to figure it out. Like, what's going on here? Anyway.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna rewatch this.
Yeah. Anyway, we just witnessed Rockhoof and Hard Place. Our average rating is a 5.6. I guess we round that up to a 6 then. How's that sound?
I guess I'm gonna stick it to 5.6.
Okay. Yeah.
5.6.
All right. So yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. We do these little reviews every week and hope to see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.